So welcome to today's Imagine seminar, and we have the great pleasure today to host Sonia Flies from ENSTA. Sonia got her PhD in 2009 at École Polytechnique, and then joined the Applied Maths department at ENSTA, a school which is in a group of Institut Polytechnique de Paris. And she's assistant professor there. Sonia's research focuses on the propagation of waves in complex media, and especially in the context of metamaterials, of inverse problems, and homogenization. And today she'll talk to us about the half-space matching method, or how to solve scattering problems in complex media. Let me just remind you that Sonia will be happy to answer questions, and you can ask them through the chat or through the Q&A box during the talk, and we'll be looking out on that to eventually unmute you so that you can ask your question directly. So without further delay, again, I'm quite happy to introduce Sonia, and Sonia, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. So I am really glad to present this work, which is not directly a work on inverse problem, but which has links. So this method, so I have introduced this method with Patrick Joly during my PhD thesis when we have studied wave propagation in periodic media. And then we have extended it to other configuration with Anne-Sophie Bonnet-Bendia. And she's now my main collaborator on this subject. We work also with Johannes Chandrawijaya, who is a former PhD student and now postdoc at Dortmund, and with Antoine Taunoir, who is assistant professor at INSA Rouen. And as you will see, there is other collaborations that I will mention during the talk, and that's why I really like this work. So the main motivation of this work is first the wave propagation in photonic crystals. Photonic crystals are periodic media, which are often called band gap materials, because some monochromatic wave at certain frequencies cannot propagate inside this media. And that is why they are used to make filters or to make optical fibers, for instance, to guide the light as these devices. The other motivation is non-destructive testing of composite materials, which here you have two illustrations of composite materials, which are often used in aeronautics. So the non-destructive testing consists in sending a wave from an emitter, and from what we receive from the receiver, know if there is defects and know some properties of the defect. So in both of these applications, there is a need to develop numerical methods to simulate the electromagnetic wave propagation in photonic crystals, or acoustic or elastic wave propagation in composite materials. In both of these applications, the size of these media is really large comparing to the wavelengths. So we will suppose, so they are often supposed to be unbounded. So this is classical when one considers wave propagation. Here, the specific difficulty is that the characteristic of the media can be anisotropic, like this is how we model composite materials in general, or stratified or periodic, so periodic or stratified, like in these devices. Okay. So in the general wave equation in both of these applications can be written in that form, where the operator L is a differential operator corresponding to acoustic, elastic, or electromagnetic problems. In this application, we fix a frequency And we consider that the source term is harmonic in time. And then it is natural to look for solutions which are also harmonic in time. And this leads to the so-called time harmonic time harmonic wave equation, sorry. Donc set in the domain omega, so the time dependence has disappeared with particular boundary conditions. And in general, this solution corresponds to the long time behavior of the solution of the wave equation. So now we will consider only a time harmonic wave equation. This time harmonic wave equation, because the domain is unbounded, raises several difficulties. First, theoretical difficulties. Indeed, as omega, the domain is unbounded, the solution is not, in general, of finite energy. So L2 is not the appropriate framework. And when you consider that the solution is only L2, locally L2, you can have infinitely many solutions. So in general, you have to prescribe the behavior of the solution at infinity in order to recover uniqueness. And this is the so-called radiation condition. So this is well known when omega is Rn, for instance, and the operator is the Laplacian. This is the so-called Sommerfeld radiation condition. When the operator is a Maxwell operator, this is a Silver-Muller radiation condition. But in more complex configurations, for instance, elasticity in anisotropic media, or even acoustic equation in periodic media, the derivation of such radiation condition is really intricate. And even when you can derive it, it is not so easy to show uniqueness. So this is first the theoretical difficulties. The numerical difficulties are that since the domain is infinite, how to compute the solution. So when the operator is a simple Laplacian outside a bounded region where you can have defects, perturbations, obstacles, and so on, this topic has been widely studied in the mathematical literature, and there is several methods. So I am going to explain this method and try to explain why they cannot work in more complex configurations. So the first method is the transparent boundary condition, which is based on a Dirichlet-Tuneman map. When the boundary, the artificial boundary is properly chosen, so for instance, a circle in 2D for isotropic acoustic equation in isotropic media, then you can use separation of variables techniques to express the solution outside in terms of its trace, for instance, on the boundary. And from this expression, you can recover the Dirichlet-Tuneman map, and then the transparent boundary condition. So this condition is non-local. So you have local approximation of this condition, or local radiation condition. The problem is that this separation of variable techniques cannot work in more complex configuration. It is obvious, for instance, in periodic media, but it is also the case for elastic equation in anisotropic media. Another class of methods are the integral equation techniques, which are based on the computation of the fundamental function, or also called the Green's function. This is not easy to apply for more complex configuration because the Green's function is not known in a closed form. And actually, the method that we proposed can help to compute the Green's function in more complex configuration. Okay, and the last technique is perfectly matched layer techniques, or complex scaling techniques, which consist in surrounding the medium by an appropriate absorbing layer where you are going to perform a complex change of variable. And this layer will absorb the outgoing waves. So this method is really popular because it is easy to implement. However, the PML can produce spurious effects, for instance, in elasticity problem in anisotropic media. And these spurious effects are linked to the instabilities that we can see in the time domain. And then we cannot use it in general for more complex configurations. So I will show you for a particular case these spurious effects during my talk. Okay, so now what we are going to use is a general approach which consists, which is called the limiting absorption principle. The idea is to, instead of considering the time harmonic wave equation, for which it is really difficult to define what is the physical solution, as as I said before, we introduce the dissipative time harmonic wave equation. So more precisely, I add an imaginary part to the frequency. And in that case, we can show that the problem is well posed in H1. And we do not have the theoretical difficulties anymore. So what we have to do is, for this complex configuration, propose a numerical method to solve this problem with dissipation. And this numerical method has to be extendable for non-dissipative problems. So the past few years, as I told you, we have introduced the half space matching method, which work from a numerical point of view for a lot of complex situations. So I will show you for periodic media, but also for elasticity equation in anisotropic media, but also for stratified media and so on. And it works for dissipative and non-dissipative cases. From a theoretical point of view, we have justified the method for dissipative problems. And for non-dissipative problems, I am going to show you the recent progress that we have done, and there is still some open questions. Okay, so let me, before beginning, before giving details, let me give you the main ideas of the half space matching method in 2D. Okay, so we have a 2D domain where this square, this pink square, will always represent a bounded region where you have perturbations, source terms, and so on. Okay, so the idea is to split the infinite domain into a rectangle, which will contain the defects and the source term and so on, and 4 half spaces which do not contain any defect. Then the unknowns of the formulation will be the restriction of the solution to the rectangle and the traces of the solution on the 4 infinite lines, which correspond to the boundaries of the half spaces. And what we use here is that the fact that the solution of half space problem can be expressed thanks to its trace at its boundary. And the expression will be analytic or semi-analytic, as you will see if you have a periodic or homogeneous media. Okay, and at the end, the formulation will couple a variational formulation in the rectangle and a system of integral equations on the traces, which are obtained by using the fact that the half space representation of the solution have to coincide where they coexist. In other words, in the overlapping zones of the half spaces. So this is the general ideas of the half space matching method, which work in general media and general equations. So I am going to give you more details for a toy problem, and then I will show you some extensions. And finally, I will give you some, so I will explain you some ongoing works and some perspectives. So first, the toy problem that I consider is a dissipative Helmholtz equation. So Helmholtz equation with dissipation, the frequency has an imaginary part, outside a square, okay? So it is an exterior problem, and I impose a Dirichlet boundary condition on this square. So J, here it is a data that it is given. And okay, so I am going to introduce some notation. So I have introduced the 4 sides of the square, and I introduce the 4 infinite lines and the associated half spaces. So the right half space, the top half space, the left one, and the bottom one. Okay. And as I said, so here I do not have a so I am going to concentrate only on the half space formulation and the integral equation. So the unknowns of the new formulation are the Dirichlet traces of the solution on the infinite lines. So let me show you how we derive the formulation. So here is my problem. So outside the square, if I introduce phi1, the trace of u on this infinite line, it is easy to see that the restriction of u in this right half space is solution of a dissipative Helmholtz equation with this Dirichlet data. And the idea is to use now a Fourier transform in the direction of the lines. And then we obtain a family of ODEs parameterized by the Fourier variable Xi. If you solve these ODEs, you obtain 2 exponential, one which is exponentially decaying and one which is exponentially growing. So the only L2 solution is given by this formula where I have chosen this definition of the square root. Okay, so here I have the exponentially decaying solution. And finally, by applying the inverse Fourier transform, you have the solution U in the half space in terms of its trace on the boundary. So here I have an integral representation that I call U1 phi 1. And what I have obtained for this right half space, I can obtain it for all the half spaces. So phi j will be the trace of u on sigma j, and uj phi j will be the half space representation of u in omega j. So now, to obtain the equation for phi j, I have to impose the fact that this different representation of the same function have to coincide where they coexist. So here, the overlapping zones are just quarter planes. For instance, so if I explain it for this quarter plane, okay, so I say that this representation of u have to coincide with this representation of u, okay, in the quarter plane. If they coincide in all the quarter plane, in particular, they will coincide in the boundary of the quarter plane, okay? And actually, there is an equivalence by well-posedness of the dissipative problem in the quarter plane. So now let's impose that the half space representation have to coincide on the boundary of the quarter plane. In this part of the boundary, U1 is equal to phi 1, and U2 can be obtained by taking x1 is equal to A, and you obtain this relation between phi 1 and phi 2. So here appear an operator applied to phi 2, which is an integral operator that I call D+. Now, if you impose that U1 is equal to U2 in this part of the boundary, U2 is equal to phi 2, and U1 phi 1, you just have to take x2 is equal to A, and you see that there appear the same operator D+. So you have obtained two equations for phi1 and phi2. And if you proceed in the same way for all the half planes, you get 8 equations that I have rewritten here. Okay. So the 4 traces are linked by the 8 equation. So here I have written, so this is the first line and the last line. Okay. So the operators here with this strange notation, but actually can be identified to only 2 operators, which correspond to the trace of the half space representation in this upper semi-infinite line or the lower one. Okay, so this is D plus and this is D minus. And finally, I didn't say what phi1 is equal to in this part of the lines. And since phi1 is a trace of u and u is equal to j, we have that phi1 is equal to j, and this is the case for all the traces. And this is the half space formulation. So actually, I changed a little bit the framework because it is easier from a numerical point of view. So I look only for L2 solution. And if I change this framework, I can consider that J is only in L2. So this is the half space formulation. You can rewrite it in a matricial form. To do so, you just write, so you just consider that the unknown is phi j minus the restriction of j on sigma j a, and you can show that these new unknowns, okay, that are written here, that I call capital Phi, is the solution of this so this equation, which is written, so it is the equivalent of this one, but in the matricial form. And here you see that the operator D is linked to these operators here. And here the phi, because of this change of unknowns, the phi on each of these on the sides of the square is equal to 0. And what we have shown is that identity minus D is the sum of a coercive operator and a compact operator. And so it is Fredholm, and we have shown uniqueness, and then we have existence. So let me give you just some ideas about the Fredholm property. You may think that the coercive part is the identity and the compact part is D, but it is wrong because the operator D is not compact. And the operator D is not compact because of the properties of the operator D plus. Okay, I remind you that D plus is the trace of the half space representation on this semi-infinite line. And this operator is not compact because you take the trace on an infinite, on semi-infinite line, which touches the boundary of the half space. But we can show that up to compact operator, you just have to consider what it is. You just have to consider phi whose support is near the corner, and you just have to consider the operator near the corner. And as we usually do in the analysis of singularities, you can show that up to compact operators, it suffices to replace D plus by its static equivalent. So you just have to take the D plus for the frequency is equal to 0. And then you can use the Mellin transform and show and really compute the norm of this operator. And finally, you can show that, so this is always already studied in this paper. Okay, and this allows to show that this operator D is the sum of an operator whose norm is strictly less than 1 and an operator which is compact. And this allows to show that it is Fredholm. From a numerical point of view, I have written the variational formulation with the bilinear form, which are obtained by using the integral representation. So you just have to choose a finite dimensional approximation of the space D, of the space V. So to do so, what we do, so you can use whatever you want, but what we have done is to truncate the lines. So the truncation is denoted capital T, and we have a 1D mesh whose mesh size is H. We have considered a 1D mesh and 1D Lagrange finite element for the unknowns. Unfortunately, you cannot compute the integrals. So you have to approximate the bilinear forms. To do so, we truncate the integrals. And we have shown that the problem is stable, it is consistent, and we have performed the error estimates. But unfortunately, you cannot compute still the integrals. You have to use a quadrature formula in Xi. And this is something that we have to finish. There is some theoretical difficulties. I can speak about that if you are interested. So now let me show you some numerical validation. So first, let's consider this exterior problem when J, the Dirichlet trace, is just the trace of the Hankel function. What we should find is the Hankel function. Okay, so it is a good validation. So we have solved the half space formulation for this frequency. And this is what we have obtained for the trace. So in black, it is the exact solution, and in red, it is the computed traces. And using the half space representation, we can reconstruct the solution in each half space. So here it is the right half space. Here, the reconstruction of the solution in the top half space, you see that they coincide because the traces satisfy the half space formulation. And finally, you can reconstruct the solution everywhere. So now, let me show you the extensions. First, you can consider different boundary conditions on the obstacles. Okay, you just have to change the nature of the trace unknowns. You can also replace the square by any polygon. Okay, and this is some numerical results that was obtained by Johannes using the code XLife++ that we use a lot in this work. Okay, okay, so this is the first extension. Then you can, instead of considering isotropic scalar equations, you can easily consider anisotropic scalar equation. The only change is that the operators would be different. Okay, the representation in each half space will be different. It is not like in an isotropic case. But this will change the operators, but the formulation is the same. Okay? So now let me show you how you consider other, so not only exterior problem, but more general problem. So let's consider this scalar wave equation, so in anisotropic media. And we suppose now that we have a source term in this bounded region and perturbation of the matrix, of the coefficient, rho. You can have obstacles and so on, as I told you. But outside omega A, I do not have source term, and the coefficients are constant. The unknowns of the new formulation are the Dirichlet traces of U on the infinite lines, as in the previous part, of course, and also, as I told you before, the restriction of U in a bounded region which contain the perturbation, okay? And in general, this bounded region do not have to lies with the square omega A. It can be bigger, okay? So because UB here, it is a restriction of U in omega B, it is easy to find that UB solves this equation. For the phi j has to satisfy the half space formulation in these semi-infinite lines, as I have shown in the previous part. Okay, so I have this equation for the traces. So now I need some equation in the blue part to close this problem, in the blue lines, and in the green lines to close, in some sense, this problem. So what it is natural now is to say that phi j is a trace of U, and UB is a restriction of U. So this is the same function, okay? So in particular, the trace in the green line are represented by the phi j, but also by the trace of UB on these lines. So here, the trace of UB in sigma AJ, in sigma A1 here, it has to be equal to phi 1 in sigma A1. So these are the new equation for phi j and UB. So now I have to close my, my equation here in order to write a variational formulation. So I have to find a variational condition. So typically a condition on the normal trace. And again, I have to say that the normal trace here of UB is the normal trace of U, and then it is also the normal trace of the half space representation. So this, in this part here, this gives me that a link between UB and the half space representation of U. And this, again, it is nothing else but an operator applied to phi 1, an operator of Dirichlet-Neumann type. And this operator has an integral representation. And this is the last equation that I have to impose on the blue lines. So this is what, so we can show also that the problem, this formulation is well posed, and we can show it only if omega b is, if b is strictly greater, is bigger than A, okay? Omega A has to be strictly inside omega B. So it is technical, and I can speak about that if you are interested also during the questions. So here are the numerical results that we have obtained for an anisotropic media, that it is characterized by this matrix. We have considered this frequency, and the infinite lines are represented in white here. Okay, so now I can speak about more interesting extensions. So first, the anisotropic elastic problem in 2D. Okay, so now here U is a vector, so it is a displacement field, and it has two components. Here it is the elasticity, the time harmonic elasticity problem, where sigma U is a stress tensor, and it is linked to the strain tensor through this fourth order tensor, which is also called a stiffness tensor, and which characterize the medium. Okay, if it is isotropic or anisotropic, everything is enclosed in this tensor. So I suppose that outside omega A, the tensor, the coefficients are constant, and the source term is inside omega A. I can have obstacles and so on. You have understood now. So to do so, I hope that you have understood that to obtain the formulation, it is always the same ideas. The only thing we change is the solution of the half space problem. So we have to compute, to be able to compute the solution of half space problem in terms of some data on its boundary. So here, for the solution of the half space problem, the two components of the displacement field satisfy two coupled of equation in each half space. So you can apply a Fourier transform as before, but you will have to solve not one ODE, but 2 coupled ODE of order 2. But it is doable, so you can solve them. And finally, you will obtain the half space representation. So, and solve the half space matching formulation. So this is what we have obtained for isotropic media, when you have a source term for which the solution is a P wave. So here the source term is such that the solution is S wave. And finally, here I have used the same source term and with obstacles, and we obtain this solution. So here we have represented the modulus of the displacement field. And we can do exactly the same for anisotropic case with respective, so the same source term. And you see that outside, in the elastic medium, the behavior of the displacement field is much more complex. And if you use perfectly matched layers instead of our formulation for the anisotropic case, you will obtain, as I told you in the introduction, some spurious effects. And this is what we have obtained for our formulation. So now let me speak a little bit about the periodic media, give you some ideas about the periodic media. So here I consider a scalar wave equation, but now the coefficients can be are periodic outside a bounded region. Okay. So again, we have to concentrate on the half space problem. And the solution of half space problem in the periodic case, it is less explicit and much more involved than for the homogeneous case. In particular, you cannot use a Fourier transform, you have to use appropriate transform, which is the Floquet-Bloch transform. So if here I have represented the half space problem with my Dirichlet trace and the half space solution, okay? If you apply a Floquet-Bloch transform in this direction, you will not obtain an ODE, you will obtain a half waveguide problem. So that's why it is more intricate. And or a problem which is set in a half band. Okay, this problem is parametrized by the Floquet variable, but it is set in the half band. So you have a family of half band problem to solve. And to solve this problem, we use a method that I have introduced also with Patrick Joly, which allows to construct the solution of half band periodic problem, not analytically, but semi-analytically. So when you have done that, when you have computed the solution for each Xi2, you can perform an inverse Floquet transform to have the solution in each half space. And then you have the equivalent of your operator D, and you can solve the half space formulation. So this is what we obtain for this periodic media, so a local perturbation of the periodic media. Here I have represented only the restriction of the solution that I have computed. And then from the traces, I can reconstruct the solution half spaces by half spaces, and I obtain this solution. And we can do that. So it is funny because we have done that also for hexagonal periodic media. And now the unknowns of the new formulation are Dirichlet traces on broken lines. So I am not going to give more details about that. What I want to do for the last minutes is to speak a little bit about the case without dissipation, which is a joint work with Simon Chandler-White and Carmichael Perfect from Reading University, still Anne-Sophie Bonnet-Bendia, but also Christophe Hazard from my group, Poems, and Johannes Chandra-Wichacha. So let's concentrate on the exterior problem in order to explain you the difficulties and what we have done. So I concentrate on the Helmholtz equation with a real frequency, okay, outside a square. As I told you, we do not have L2 solution, and we have to impose a radiation condition to have uniqueness of this problem in locally L2 solution, let's say. Okay, so now I have my problem for the case without dissipation, and you can try to derive the half space formulation. To do so, we have to derive the half space representation of this solution, of the outgoing solution. So you can do that, and what you can show is that the outgoing, so the solution in this half space have this formula, so which is similar to what we have with dissipation, except that you see that when when psi is big, here you have an exponentially decaying function, so which is as the case with dissipation. But when psi is small, you by using this definition of the square root, you have an exponentially oscillating function, okay? But which is outgoing, which satisfies the Sommerfeld radiation condition. So from this half space representation, you can derive a similar system of integral equations by using the compatibility condition. So numerically, the method works, even in complex media. But from a theoretical point of view, the difficulties are that since the function u is not L2, the traces will not be L2. And actually, you can show, thanks to the radiation condition, that the behavior of the trace is like this. So it's 1 over the square root of t. So you do not have a functional framework for the operators, and then for the problem. So as I told you, numerically the method works, even in complex media, and actually the numerical results that I have shown to you were performed without dissipation. But even if it works, we have to admit that we have a slower convergence rate. More precisely, if you consider so my numerical validation with the Hankel function, and you represent the log of the error with respect to the truncation, you can show that you have an exponential convergence in the case with dissipation, and this exponential rate depends on the dissipation. And when you do not have dissipation, you have a convergence, but which is slower. And if you represent now the log of the error with respect to the log of t, you can show that the error actually behaves as 1 over the square root of t. So the convergence is not good. So we tried to how to say that, but to propose a new formulation for this non-dissipative case. And the main idea of the new formulation is to use a complex scaling idea. More precisely, we use the fact that the traces has analytic extensions which are exponentially decaying at plus or minus infinity. So if you represent the traces in terms of t, so the curvilinear abscisse, so here I represent it with respect to real t, the real part of t and the imaginary part of t. What you can show is that the traces has analytic extensions that I call phi g theta on this broken line. Okay, and because phi j has this behavior at infinity, you can show that phi j theta is exponentially decaying at infinity. And this is what we use. So we introduce a new formulation where the unknowns are the analytic extension of the traces. But we have to find equations for this analytic extension. So we have equation for the traces, but not for their analytic extensions. But what it is magic, so is that the half space solution can be expressed thanks to the trace, but actually it can be also expressed thanks to the analytic extension of the trace, but not in the whole half space, but only in a subdomain of the half space whose definition depends on theta. And thanks to this fact, you can use some compatibility condition and find couple integral equation of the same form, but for the analytic extension. And because the analytic extension are L2, you have L2 framework and the problem is well posed. So we have used this formulation to see that it works, okay, to solve a scattering problem. And we have shown that yes, and we have shown that using this complex scaled half space matching method, you can recover an exponential convergence. So now I can speak about ongoing works. I don't know, Eric, how much time I have.
Let's say another 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so it's just to give you the flavor of the ongoing works. Okay, so so with Johannes and then Sophie and the collaborator also in the CEA, we have extended our work for elastic problem in 2D, but in 3D plates. Okay, so what I call a plate is a domain which is unbounded in two direction and which is bounded in the other direction. But we have still the elastic equation, so it is not a plate equation, okay? And for this problem, the half spaces, so it is just to show you that it works also in 3D. The half spaces are replaced by half plates. The lines are replaced by strips, okay? And you can apply a Fourier transform. So you will not have an ODE to solve. You will have half waveguide. And then you have to express the displacement field, the Fourier transform of a displacement field. And so to express it, we express it in terms of the modes of the waveguides. And we have to use the displacement and the normal trace on the boundary to do that. And at the end of the day, the unknowns are the displacement and the normal trace on each infinite strips and the restriction of the displacement in a bounded region. So this is what it is shown here. And so here it is in a bounded region. And finally, so it is a cut and we can reconstruct the solution in a bigger domain. Yes, another extension, which is also really interesting, I think, to consider more complex configuration, is that in fact, the Fourier representation that we have used can be replaced by any integral representation. For instance, integral representation involving a Green's function. Okay, so if you know the Green's function in the gray part, you can use it for a half space representation. And in that case, the unknowns, so you are not only the trace, but also the normal trace. But the advantage is that of this idea is that you are not obliged to consider straight lines. You can replace them by curved ones. And then you can apply this method in configurations where a Green's function is not available in the whole domain, but only subdomain by subdomains. So for instance, in general junction problems, you know the Green's function in stratified domain, thanks to the work of Fadil Santosa, for instance. So you can use the Green's function of this of all of these stratified domain, and you can couple them with a variational formulation in the junction, and you can compute the solution using the same idea. Okay. So we have so we work a lot on this. So we want to extend the complex scaled half space matching method to complex media, because now we have only for scalar wave equation in isotropic or anisotropic media. Actually, there is a lot to do to improve the efficiency of the method, as yes, in terms of computing the integral representation, or inverting the system, and so on. We have extended it to time-dependent problem, and we have done nothing for now for Maxwell equations. So I think that it will be really interesting also. And finally, this would be nice maybe to have these two configurations in mind, which are really not obvious. But yeah, I hope that in the future, we will be able to propose a method for these general configurations. So I thank you for your attention. I'm done.
Thank you, Sonia, for a very nice talk. We still have a few minutes for questions, so please feel free to either raise your hand or use the chat box to ask any questions. So in the meanwhile, maybe I should start with my own questions, Sonia.
Yes.
First of all, a very naive question about what you would expect as the influence of the defect embedded in a periodic medium, like the ones you studied. You would think that the influence of the defect may not be felt very far away from it, and so that you might replace the periodic medium by a homogeneous one if you're sufficiently far away. Is that realistic?
I think it is, of course, for large wavelengths or small frequencies, since you can use homogenized, you can replace the periodic media by the effective one, homogenized one. But in general, I am not sure. As you, I can go back to the solutions that I have obtained in periodic media, but you can see, so it was fast. I know, but you can see that the behavior, so it is at a larger frequency. The behavior of the solution, even far from the perturbation, is not so. It is really particular, yeah. I think that you cannot replace it by a homogeneous medium.
All right. Of course, that would depend on the frequency, on the respective size also of the defect compared to the periods, the size of the period, and okay.
Yes, more the wavelengths with respect to the period, I think. Yeah, when for large wavelengths, I think that, yeah, you can replace it by homogeneous one, but in general, I am not sure. I don't think so.
This is Fadil. I think the physicists like to do that kind of computation that you were talking about, Eric, with the supercell method, right? They use
Exactly.
periodicity of periods of periodic medium.
Yes,
And,
yes. But the supercell is only used, it seems, maybe I am wrong, but it seems to me that it is only used for frequency. For instance, you can use a supercell if you consider a frequency which is in a gap, in the
Exactly,
gap
yes.
of
Yeah.
the operator.
Yeah, it cannot
Or
be found.
if you, yes, exactly. So in that case, when the frequency is in the gap, then the solution is exponentially decaying, actually, in the periodic media. So maybe that was your point, Eric. Yes. When the frequency is in a gap, the solution is exponentially decaying. So you can take a large box.
Zero on far away.
Yes. Yes, far, and you can put a Dirichlet or periodic or so on, and compute the solution. Yes, but the size of the box depends on the distance between the frequency and the essential spectrum of the underlying operator. So you have to know that, and this is not always easy to have this kind of information. But if you have it, that is true that you can compute the solution in a small box. But when the frequency is in a band, in the essential spectrum, this does not work.
Right. Very nice work, Sonia. It's very, very interesting to see
Thank you.
how much progress you've made in this.
We have a question from George. I'm trying to unmute you. And so there you are. You can ask your question, George. If you are still right here. Otherwise, let me just read the question. It says, do you have any results about the inverse problem of electromagnetic equation in anisotropic media? For instance, radar image reconstruction in such a case?
So the inverse problems?
Right. And he's asking about inverse electromagnetic problems in anisotropic media.
Yes. I do not have no. I do not have results about the inverse problem. What I can say about electromagnetic wave equation in anisotropic media. So this is something that we want to study, because actually we realized that even when the dielectric tensor is diagonal, it is anisotropic but diagonal, the PML cannot work. Okay, so that was really, really interesting. Because in the acoustic wave equation, when the anisotropic matrix is diagonal, the PML works. But for Maxwell equation, it does not work. So we have realized that. So this was really interesting, and that's why it seems that there exists no method except, I think, the half space matching method that could work to solve Maxwell equation in anisotropic media. So I don't know if people have some inverse have solved some inverse problems, but I can say that solving the direct problem is really complex and is really, really interesting. Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions? There is another question, it seems. Manny, maybe I can unmute you, but I'm not sure I can actually. Manny, can you ask your question?
Oh, a very interesting talk. From your talk, I'm just curious. It makes me think of Littlewood-Paley theory in terms of decomposing and formulating the problem using integrals at the boundary of a arbitrary region, but I don't know I'm not from this wave space and thing. I'm from graphics, so I might be completely off base. Sorry. Yeah.
Which method I didn't hear?
Littlewood Paley is a way to decompose. Terence Tao talk about it extensively.
So I don't know actually. Maybe you can write it on the chat.
Yeah, I did. It's called Littlewood Paley. It's Paley, P-A-L-E-Y, and I used it in the context of needless, which is a way to do a to decompose a set of unknown and to solve it on the boundary of a using integral formulation. But that is, if it's not relevant, I shouldn't waste everybody's time. But this is just, it's just the geometry reminds me of Littlewood Paley theory. Yeah.
Okay, so I can look at I can look at it.
Okay. Yeah, if it's I'll be curious. But thank you.
Yes.
Very good talk. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we passed our time. Sonia, many thanks again for your great talk. And
thank you.
For all the attendees, thank you for joining today. And we hope to see you with us next week again. Thank you, everybody. And we'll leave it back to Sally.
Thank you.